is one of the all-time greats. Unfortunately for Ward, he came along during what has now been labeled as the Johnson era. That's not to slight Ward, of course. He is a champion, without a doubt, one of the best to ever put on a motocross boot. He just hasn't received the notoriety that Johnson has been able to accumulate. Critical moment in the 88 250 main at Daytona. Ward goes down on his own. He's up quickly and remounts. Watch in slow motion. Ward goes down, and while he's on his back, has the presence of mind to keep twisting his right wrist to keep the engine from stalling. Had he not done that, there was no telling how much time he would have gone by while he tried to restart his hot racing engine. The Daytona Supercross course is unique. It has an unusual base, dirt and sand. And it has an unusual configuration due to the physical parameters of the Daytona Superspeedway Tri-Oval. The man responsible for the Daytona Challenge, the professor of motocross, Gary Bailey. Axton, Virginia is the home for the professor. And as you can see, his title professor is not just for show. Gary Bailey's motocross school is world-renowned. Getting back to Daytona, though, Bailey is the architect and builder of this unique track, which is half supercross and half outdoor motocross, fit into the Daytona Superspeedway Tri-Oval. The course is approximately the length of 3 football fields. Its width about the length of 1 football gridiron. In between is enough ruts, whoops, and jumps to challenge the best in the world. You may think after completion of the track that Gary Bailey's work is over. Think again. The professor and his band of merry men maintain the course while the racing is in progress. Over the years, the professor has certainly earned his doctorate in perseverance. Gary Bailey's biggest track building challenge was probably the 1987 Daytona Supercross. That year, Mother Nature was not cooperating with the Cycle Week racing agenda. '87 also marked the first time a privateer rider took the checkers at the Big D. At the start of the day, it didn't look good. The track was a quagmire. Bailey and his crew worked a miracle just to get the track somewhat dry. The real challenge would be to keep a good track together in the midst of a full day's worth of racing. Rick Johnson, #1, was the pre-race favorite. Fate, however, was not in Johnson's corner. When the gate dropped, Johnson and Kawasaki's Ron Lachine were involved in a first-turn pileup. With the conditions the way they were, the odds for a comeback win were not very good. With 2 of the favorites out of the hunt, the lead was being contested by a handful of riders. Adding to the confusion for fans and scorers alike was the fact that the sticky mud and sand were covering everything, including the number plates. Scoring was a nightmare. Back in the pack, Rick Johnson was having a terrible day and fell yet again. Up front, it wasn't until the midway point in the race that a clear-cut leader had been established, and that was number 6, Yamaha's Keith Bowen. Back in third, number 43, Bob Hurricane Hanna, was charging from a mid-pack start. Then things happened quickly. In the span of less than 2 laps, Bowen was out due to a mechanical failure, while Hanna was being consoled on the sidelines after a bone-jarring spill. The result? Privateer Rick Ryan from California was out in front with his number 12 Honda. He held on to take the checkered flag, the first ever win at Daytona for a privateer. One other footnote, Ryan accomplished this feat with a severely sprained knee. Back to 1988, and the order continued to be Johnson on the Honda, followed by Ward on the Kawasaki. Frazier and Ali going at it tooth and nail. Behind the 2 champions, young up-and-coming riders number 23 Ron Tickner and number 7 Jeff Leask from Australia were contesting third. We'll be back for the finish of the 1988 Daytona Supercross when the best of American motorcycle racing continues right here on ESPN. Is definitely an experience to remember, and that goes for off the track as well as on. Back to the action, and number 2, Rick Johnson, is well clear of Jeff Ward as the field negotiated the final lap. Behind the Flying Johnson, Ward had settled in for the runner-up spot. He was not going to jeopardize the vital championship points he was earning towards what he had hoped would be another Supercross title. Behind Ward, the big surprise was number 7, Jeff Leask. At this point in his career, no one really knew anything about the Australian. After Daytona '88, Leask had a rep among U.S. motocross fans. The story and the glory was up front, though, as Rick Magic Johnson took his 2nd Daytona Supercross victory. Afterwards, he talked to PA track announcer Larry Myers.
Hey, great ride out there, the whole shot. What were you thinking when you got it? What was your first thought?
Well, actually, Larry, it went all the way back to the qualifier. I lined up a little bit further outside in my qualifier, and I got nudged a little bit coming into the first turn. So I lined up about, I think, 4th from the inside. So I figured if anything goes bad, I'm still far enough on the inside, I can salvage a good start. And I got off to a great jump. I beat all the guys on the inside of me. And then George Holland was side by side going through the whoops. And once I seen a clear stretch in front of me on the whoop-de-doos, I knew that was my strong point. Just hold it wide open and get out and get away.
The advantage of getting the whole shot in a race like this?
Oh, No, it's a definite factor in this race, because not only the rain but the sand here. I got my face filled full of dirt from lappers. They don't try, but we use almost a paddle tire in this race, and the sand is wet and moist, and it sticks to your goggles. So sometimes you can pull 3 to 4 tear-offs a lap.
2 Daytona wins. Is this the highlight?
This is the highlight of the year for sure. I won Anaheim, I won in my hometown in San Diego, but nothing matches up to this, because I feel this is the down-home roots of motocross and motorcycle racing, because the people who come out and watch, they sit in the rain, they rode the motorcycles here from all over the country, and I just think that's really great, and that's who I want to race for, is people who appreciate what I'm doing out here.
Here's a look at the final results. Rick Johnson was the winner, followed by Jeff Ward. In third, Australian Jeff Leese. Fourth went to a determined Eric Kehoe, while Ron Tickner rounded out the top 5. 6 through 10 looked like this. Kawasaki's Ron Lachine finished a credible 6th. George Holland ended up 7th. Multi-time national champion Brock Glover rebounded from that spill you saw earlier to net 8th. In 9th place was Brian Manley, and 10th was Osho, Johnny O'Mara. If you're a motocross fan, you probably already know that Rick Johnson went on from that day in Daytona to win the Supercross championship. In the process, he solidified his stature as the world's #1 rider. Earlier this year on ESPN, you saw exclusive coverage of the 1989 Daytona Supercross, in which Johnson did not participate as a result of a wrist injury. In addition, ESPN had exclusive coverage of the 1989 Camel Supercross series, in which Johnson rode brilliantly until his unfortunate accident. Before we close out tonight's edition of the Best of American Motorcycle Racing, we thought you'd like to hear from the world's best motocross rider and the 1988 Daytona champion. Because of this year's injury situation, the first question posed was about injuries and how he dealt with them in the past.
In 1983, I broke my collarbone in January, came back, and I was leading the 250 Nationals and dislocated my hip. And it was very much a slap in the face, and I was at a point in my career I was very cocky. I'd run into people. I'd do whatever it took to win, and I thought that, you know, I'm going to be the best guy there is in the world, and no one's going to stop me. And I got humbled very fast. I dislocated my hip. They said it was dislocated for so long, for 5 hours, that I might have injured the arteries and cut off the blood supply, and the bone might become brittle and have to get a transplant. And they said if you do that you'll be lucky to walk. But everything, I'm back in one piece, and my left hip is just as good as my right. And I know that it can end at any time. You know, with an injury, a knee blows out, you hurt your back, whatever it may be. And I know that I'm not Superman.
There's a lot of riders out there that think he definitely has a big S underneath his Honda jersey. The next question was on diet. This is for all you young aspiring pro riders out there, so listen up.
I keep my diet pretty stable. I don't change my diet coming up for race day. I've just tried to stay away from a lot of fatty foods. Don't eat red meat very much. I mostly eat turkey and chicken and fish, and a lot of pasta, mostly a lot of carbohydrates, because it burns quick and it keeps your energy level high. So I'm trying to keep my body fat as lean as possible, because I'm so much big. I'm not that much bigger than everybody, but the mechanics work so hard to get the bikes down to the minimum weight limit, and if you're struggling around 5-10 extra pounds, that's just extra weight that the motor's got to pull.
And finally, how does the #1 rider keep up his motivation after years of winning and enough money to keep him comfortable probably for the rest of his life?
I just see new goals for myself to set, to be stronger mentally and physically, and just have a total package that's unbeatable. So I've never won every race in a year, and I don't feel that's physically possible, but that's the goal I'm shooting for.
Rick Johnson is right on target with his goal. The 1988 Daytona Supercross will go down in history as one of Johnson's most important victories. And I'm sure by the time the 1990 Daytona Supercross rolls around, RJ will be there, shooting for his goal. For the best of American motorcycle racing, I'm Bruce Flanders.